is Anamika from Ireland with a new song called Ornament.
That's pretty cool. John Schaefer is the host of WNYC's New Sounds. You can see his full roundup of the week in music at newsounds.org.
WNYC supporters include Columbia University's Masters in Strategic Communication. At Columbia, students learn from scholar practitioners in public relations and corporate communication. More at sps.columbia.edu/strategy.
WNYC, independent journalism in the public interest. 93.9 FM and AM 820. NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Marketplace is supported by Sendoso, the corporate gifting platform that helps you send personalized gifts, experiences, and swag to customers, prospects, and employees. Learn more at sendoso.com/marketplace.
On the program today, lending, the general state thereof. A cup of coffee, lots and lots of cups of coffee, actually. And then chainsaws. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by VinoVest, the wine and whiskey investing platform helping people diversify beyond the stock market. More at vinovest.co. And by C3 AI. C3 Generative AI provides ChatGPT enterprise search that is verifiable, secure, and accurate across all enterprise data. C3.ai. This is Enterprise AI.
In Los Angeles, I'm Kai Rizdal. It is Monday today. This one is the 6th of November. Good as always to have you along, everybody. You want to get something done in this economy, get something built or get a company started or make a big capital investment of almost any kind, you need capital, money. And if you haven't actually got the cash, credit is what you turn to, which is why we turn as we begin today with the state of lending here in late 2023. We got the most recent Senior Loan Officer Opinion Survey from the Fed today. Lenders are tightening their standards across loan categories, and there's fewer loan applications being made in the first place. That much we have known for a bit now. What is new is that even though the lending environment is getting tighter, we're not seeing many signs that loan delinquencies are picking up a whole lot. So Marketplace's Justin Ho got on the phone with a couple of bankers to see what is what.
A loan is generally considered delinquent when a payment is more than 30 days past due. Chris Duncan, Chief Lending Officer at LaSalle State Bank in Illinois, says he doesn't have many borrowers in that situation.
For us, anywhere from 0.1% of our overall loan portfolio to 0.3%, that range.
But Duncan says he looks at those numbers with a more pessimistic point of view.
Once they get that low, there's only one way that they can go, and that's up.
Duncan says there are signs that could happen. For instance, overdraft rates are ticking up at the bank. And even though loans might not be 30 days overdue,
we're starting to see loans that either were never past due or, maybe at the most got 5 and 10 days past due, that they're starting to creep on into that 20, 25-day range or making payments on the 29th day to avoid that 30-day delinquency.
Same thing's been happening at Optus Bank in South Carolina. CEO Dominic Miarton says he's seeing late payments pick up across the board.
I was a little surprised in the last weekly loan meeting that, I saw some names of business borrowers that I hadn't seen in months or even years on that list.
Miarton says his bank has been checking in with borrowers who are late just to see how things are going. He says overall, they say they're adjusting to a tighter economic environment.
Costs are a little bit higher because of inflation. Their business may have slowed down a tiny bit, or their existing consumer debt may be higher cost, so they're having to service more of that with the same amount of cash flow.
But Miarton says borrowers still have wiggle room to figure out how to keep making their payments, in large part because people still have money coming in.
We still continue to see a pretty nice pickup in wages. We see employment still staying relatively strong by historic standards.
Miarton says that's why late payments aren't necessarily red flags, as long as delinquencies don't pick up. I'm Justin Ho for Marketplace.
Wall Street on this Monday. Calm, one might say. We'll have the details when we do the numbers. All right, here's the corporate question of the day. How big is too big? I'm asking because Starbucks, it of the already ubiquitous outlets, thinks it still has room to grow. The company announced not too long ago its triple shot reinvention strategy. Catchy, no? Which includes growing to 55,000 stores globally by the year 2030. 55,000 Starbucks. McDonald's, for context here, has about 40,000 locations. So, A, is there a market for so much more Starbucks? And B, why now? Marketplace's Kristen Schwab takes a look.
You know those times when you're on your way to work or wherever, and you have just a few minutes to grab a cup of coffee, but you pull into the parking lot or run into the store, and the line is intimidatingly long? Darren Tristano, CEO of Food Service Results, an industry research group, says there's a term for that.
They do what's called a look and leave. They just decide, I don't have time for this.
That's a big loss for Starbucks, and one potential reason why it has room to expand, even in cities where it has multiple locations. Because while the add-ons that go into an upside-down caramel macchiato with extra caramel, vanilla sweet cream, cold foam, and caramel crunch are lucrative, they also increase wait times. So Starbucks is opening what it calls purpose-defined stores, locations dedicated to delivery and drive-through.
They can do 30 to 40% more volume through the drive-through, especially during peak times.
Starbucks thinks there's plenty of room to grow in the U.S., but the majority of the chain's new locations will be in other countries. It says a third of its earnings growth potential is overseas. Miguel Gomez is a professor of food marketing at Cornell.
In China in particular, the culture of coffee is growing.
He says people there like to try new food trends. Plus, they're super comfortable with digital ordering and rewards, something Starbucks is planning to expand. Now, admittedly, the economic forecast in China isn't as sunny as it used to be, and it's a little uncertain here in the U.S., with inflation still stuck a little high. Sean Dunlop, a restaurant analyst at Morningstar, says this is the kind of moment when chains thrive.
The larger chains that are able to negotiate better prices on raw materials and food and paper, and better able to invest in systems that automate scheduling or automate inventory management and sort of save costs.
And perhaps pass those savings on to customers who are still looking for affordable indulgences. I'm Kristen Schwab for Marketplace.
Recession, soft landing. Recession, soft landing. Recession, soft landing. That has been the macroeconomic balancing act for, 2 years now? And with that jobs report we got on Friday, the debate is not stopping. The truth is there was some positive data in Friday's information and maybe a little bit to worry about as well. Marketplace's Sabri Benishore walks us through what the labor market is telling us.
Are we headed for recession? Well, not if you are in healthcare. Healthcare won the economy over the past year. 900,000 more people now have jobs in that industry. Leisure and hospitality did well over the year too. So did government jobs.
Those three together were responsible for 73% of all the jobs added in the last 12 months.
Seljuk Iran heads the Labor Market Institute at the Conference Board. So some industries are doing great, but they might not be representative. Healthcare, for example, that has kind of been on its own journey.
We have an aging population, and as people get older, they demand more health services. That is going to continue independent of whether there's a recession or not.
Overall, the number of new jobs created each month has been chaotic, but generally trending down for 12 months. Temp workers, which Aaron says are kind of a canary in the coal mine, have seen a big decline. And wage growth is now what some economists call puzzlingly low.
Eventually, we do expect a recession, and we are expecting that the job losses are going to be more industry-wide.
There is not a consensus here, though, because on the other hand, things are, objectively speaking, pretty good. Julia Pollack is chief economist at ZipRecruiter.
It is slowing down, but granted, we're slowing down from a period when we had 2 million jobs recovered per quarter, and we're now at a place where we're adding about over 600,000 a quarter. That's still a very, very healthy clip.
So the slowdown in jobs growth is relative, Pollack says. And another way of looking at the current job market is not that we are on the road to fizzling out, but rather
things are getting back to normal.
Justin Wolfers is professor of economics at the University of Michigan.
In a period in which we're creating jobs basically at amongst the fastest rates we've ever done so, and in which the unemployment rate has hovered around its 50-year low, we've had a drumbeat of recession talk. It's absolutely bonkers, bananas, makes no sense.
So are we headed for a recession next year? Well, the answer is definitively. I'm Sabri Benishore for Marketplace.
That was pretty good. All right, so you know what else is really definitively? David Brancaccio in the Marketplace Morning Report. Everything you need to know to start your economic day, you ought to check it out. Piggybacking on Sabri's story just there about the labor market, definitively. Some of the slices of it that are coming out on top, as he said. Healthcare up 58,000 jobs last month. But, sometimes you do something for a while, healthcare maybe, and you just need a change. That's the setup for today's installment of our series, My Economy.
My name is Taylor White. I am a chainsaw carver here in central Maine. I have a small business called TM Custom Carvings, and a small YouTube channel by Tay Marie where I share my art. Getting into chainsaw art was very, very random. I originally fell into nursing. I was working at a small hospital, but COVID, when it first came along, was kind of like the apocalypse. And it was really tough. I just found myself really tired and burnt out, and I knew that something needed to change. And I got that first chainsaw. It was just a little electric chainsaw, under $100. And I don't know, I just felt right at home. I think I had a lot of years of pent up art I needed to express. It's like just right up my alley. Like I could not think of a better job. I realized that I needed a little bit more power, so I invested in my first gas chainsaw, and that's just kind of where everything kind of blew up. I wouldn't say I have like a tool addiction, but it's definitely a little addicting. So at this point now, I went from one saw to now I have 6 saws. My average saw has been around $500. But I'm at a point now where I pretty much have everything I absolutely need to get the results I want in my art. So I'm starting to kind of see that switch over from taking money in and then immediately putting it back into where I'm actually starting to see myself making profits now, which is just like, it's huge. It feels really good to start actually making money. I am booked out for all of 2023 now, which is awesome. I recently just finished my largest project to date, and that was a 10-foot tall, realistic, high-detailed grizzly bear, and that project sold for $8,000 flat. But, at the same time, I just finished a crow. That was a $200 commission. Pricing is definitely one of the hardest parts, but I do know, I have a gross income right now of $30,000 in my first year. I know that's not much, but I can definitely see myself making a very comfortable salary in the future if I can continue landing larger commissions. I think that Big Grizzly Bear is definitely the first project that's helped me put my foot in the door and might possibly open up some bigger opportunities for me.
Taylor White carving with a chainsaw up in central Maine. We cannot do this series without you or whatever heavy equipment or tool you use. So let us know what's going on with you, would you? Marketplace.org/myeconomy. Coming up, a crash course on collective action.
We try to figure out solutions that are fair, that are equitable.
First, though, let's do the numbers. Dow Industrials up 34 points today, about 0.1%, 34,095. The Nasdaq picked up 40 points, 0.3%, closed at 13,518. The S&P 500 grew 7 points, almost 0.2%. 43 and 65, calm, as I said. Hilton Grand Vacations shrank 8% after posting lower than expected third quarter revenue and reducing its guidance. The company said it would be acquiring competitor Blue Green Vacations in a deal worth about $1.5 billion. Blue Green surged more than 106%. Entertainment giant Paramount dropped 7.75% today after receiving a double downgrade from Bank of America. B of A noted there are no significant opportunities for the firm to sell off parts of its business at the moment. A new survey of international views on 24 mostly rich countries has good news for the United States, but not so much for China. The Pew Research Center's annual survey found that 59% of respondents had a positive impression of the United States. Only 28% viewed China favorably. That gap in favorability this year is the biggest since Pew began the survey in 2005. Bond prices down since you asked. The yield on the 10-year T-note rose to 4.64%. You're listening to Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Amazon Business. From small business to big enterprise and everything in between, Amazon Business helps simplify the supplies buying process. Amazon Business, your partner for smart business buying. And by Schwab. Schwab knows that investors want control of their financial future. That's why when it comes to wealth management, Schwab is dedicated to giving investors more choices. More at schwab.com. And by the Peter G. Peterson Foundation, a nonpartisan organization dedicated to raising awareness and accelerating action on America's fiscal challenges to build a brighter economic future for the next generation. Learn more at pgpf.org.
Support for WNYC comes from New York Presbyterian, where data scientists and doctors from Columbia and Weill Cornell Medicine are working together to one day help patients get a better prediction of their future health. Stay amazing. New York Presbyterian.
On the next All of It, celebrated artist Mickalene Thomas creates elaborate mixed media portraits of contemporary Black women. Now she's turning her gaze back in time. She joins us to discuss a show she's curating at Yale University featuring portraits of Black women, men, and children before emancipation. Plus, we'll preview the Doc NYC Film Festival. I'm Allison Stewart. Join me for All of It, weekdays at noon on WNYC.
Did you know your mobile phone is also a radio? Just type WNYC into your browser and listen live to the news and conversation you rely on. WNYC. Live stream it at WNYC.org.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Ryssdal. So here's a data point. The latest Fed data, it's from the second quarter of this year, shows that Americans over 60, that's basically the baby boomers and the silent generation, hold more than half of this country's wealth, around $96 trillion. So what then happens to that money in the fullness of time, shall we say? The topic at hand is the much talked about generational wealth transfer, about which Annie Logue wrote the other day for Insider. Annie, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Tell me about your grandmother-in-law, Sue.
Grandma Sue, yes. My husband took over her affairs after his grandfather died. And at that time, she was 87. She had some health issues. And she told Rick, that he would inherit everything as soon as she died. And at that time, it would have been a fairly substantial amount of money. It would have been about $250,000. But that money was used to take care of her. She eventually spent all that money down. She eventually qualified for Medicaid. She died at the age of 98. Oof. And that is a fairly typical story because people live a long time and long-term care can be very expensive.
Can we detour for just a second here into the idea of long-term care and the cost of it? First of all, I think it's far more expensive than most people realize. But also, it does not appear that there are solutions to this.
Long-term care in the United States is paid for by a few main sources. The biggest one is out-of-pocket. The second is Medicaid. And what happens is a lot of retirees who've spent through their assets qualify. Some long-term care is provided by Medicare. And then some long-term care is paid for by the Veterans Administration for people who served. A lot of people got called up, did their 2 years left, but they qualify for veterans benefits. Right. All of those programs are looking at the coming increase in the population, and the planners are getting nervous.
So this whole idea of the generational wealth transfer that we've been hearing about now for 20, 30-something years, that maybe it actually existed 30 years ago when these pieces first started appearing, but it sort of doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist for the vast majority of people.
Right.
Yeah.
What did your husband do when Grandma Sue departed?
Well, first of all, he was grateful that she had enough money that we didn't have to help pay for her.
Yeah.
And also that he was able to get good care for her. Right? Most people want their elders to have a good life. So he was very grateful for that. I think when it all came down to it, he got about $2,000, and that went towards new windows in our dining room. Which was a good thing. Saved us some money. We're in Chicago, so winters are a thing here. We're also, like I said, very grateful that we were able to ensure that Grandma Sue had a good quality of life, but that costs money.
Yeah. Annie Logue, writing the other day about generational wealth transfers and long-term care, which are related. Annie, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Twice in the past couple of weeks, undergraduate students on college campuses have voted to unionize, undergraduate being the key word there. Graduate students organizing has been around for a while, but undergrads at Harvard and Oregon unionizing is new. And at some point soon, nearly 20,000 undergraduate student workers at the 23 campuses of the California State University system, the biggest in the country, are going to hold a union election as well. Student workers in all kinds of jobs, from residence halls to campus radio stations, have unionized at more than a dozen schools in just the past year, which could have big implications for the workforce of the future. Marketplace's Megan McCarty-Carino caught up with a student organizer at San Diego State University.
Colin Culver is a fourth-year political science major and residential assistant, and he's not shy about approaching fellow students on the job. But these folks are at the help desk of the library, so indoor voices.
Have I talked to you guys yet about the union efforts that's been going on recently?
Culver and other organizers had been gathering signatures since last spring for an election that could happen early next year. Now he's asking people what issues matter to them.
Sick pay, for sure. Mm-hmm. I'm recovering from a cold. I had to get 12 hours in the past week that I didn't get.
Didn't get paid for.
Yeah, I didn't get paid for, so that sucks.
Student workers here don't get sick pay. They're also exempt from some local minimum wage laws.
I don't know what y'all get paid here, but I get paid $15.50 an hour, which is below the minimum wage in San Diego County. And that's kind of something that's pushed me to get involved with the campaign.
Yeah, I'm super about all of what you guys are doing. So
good to hear.
Yeah.
Culver says in months of canvassing, no one has said they're not interested. Approval of unions has been trending up for decades among Americans, hitting levels not seen since the 1960s, according to recent Gallup polls. But Gen Z support is especially strong, says Toby Higbee, who's been a professor of history and labor studies at UCLA for the last 15 years.
When I first arrived, students were curious, but not really sure about it. Today, my labor history classes are packed. Every single one of our labor studies classes is oversubscribed.
He says college students face mounting debt and diminishing returns for their degrees. They came of age at a time of mass protests over racial injustice and about gun violence, and they have much more exposure to labor activism than previous generations did.
During that period of union decline from the 80s on, it just got harder and harder for people to actually have that firsthand knowledge of what it meant to be connected to a union.
College students today still might not have a personal connection, a parent or a grandparent in a union, but they've watched workers at Starbucks, Trader Joe's, and Apple stores unionize. Strike activity has surged. And Higbee points out that white-collar workers at museums, nonprofits, and tech companies are increasingly taking collective action.
Young people are kind of learning that we should be in solidarity with other workers, and this is how you get what you need. It really does have the potential to have a big change on our political life broadly.
Because undergraduate student union members may be the most likely to take their engagement outside the academy.
Union strong, union proud. Say it clear, say it loud.
This march was last October at Barnard College in New York, where undergraduate residential assistants unionized. They're now negotiating their first contract, and sophomore Abigail Fixer is at the bargaining table. But when we talked, she was in an echoey hall on campus.
We try to figure out solutions that are fair, that are equitable. It's really powerful.
As an RA, she might only benefit from a union contract for a couple years at most, but says the experience of collective bargaining will stick with her.
I think unions are incredibly important, and I would be honored to be part of one after college.
So would Colin Culver at San Diego State. He's graduating this spring, so he might never get the benefit of a contract, at least in this job. He says he wants to continue labor organizing after college, and in the meantime, he's got some homework to finish. I'm Megan McCarty-Carino for Marketplace.
This final note on the way out today, for sure a sign of these economic times. Saw this on Axios, that according to the wedding website The Knot, almost 20% of all couples registered on that site are including home funds on their registries, money to buy a home. More popular, in fact, those home funds are than honeymoon funds.
Marketplace is supported by Baird, dedicated to attracting and retaining talent from across the financial industry, providing continuity for clients. More at BairdDifference.com. And by Bitwarden. The Bitwarden Password Manager stores unlimited logins, secure notes, credit cards, and more with access on any device. More at Bitwarden.com.
All right, we're going. Here is your moment of economic context. It's a tad bit weedy, but relevant, I think. New data from the New York Fed that shows supply chain pressures. Remember those? Supply chains? Anyway, they're the lowest they have been in 26 years, those pressures. That's across planes, trains, trucks, and ships. Our daily production team includes Andy Corbin, Richard Cunningham, Maria Hollenhorst, Sarah Leeson, Sean McHenry, and Sophia Terenzio. I'm Kai Risdall. We will see you tomorrow. This is APM.